And now for the superpowered protists. Slime molds are the first protist we're going to talk about. Slime molds, there are two different types of slime molds, cellular slime molds and acellular slime molds. Cellular slime molds are thousands of individual cells that team up and work together. They have special jobs. Some do the eating, some work on reproduction, and some build special structures. They find it more efficient when they're able to work together as a team. Then we have acellular slime molds. They're also called plasmodial slime molds, and they're actually one big gigantic cell. They can be huge, a couple feet across, but they're still only one cell. They ooze across the ground of forests and digest everything that they can get their little grimy cell mouths on. So this picture here of this yellow blob, that is a acellular slime mold. So it's all just one cell, if you can imagine that. And you can see how big this one is compared to these twigs and different rocks on the ground and stuff. And you might have seen that when I was Googling a picture of a slime mold. This did seem very familiar to me. And this is another picture of a slime mold. Amoebas, amoebas, amoebas. They are small, single-celled organisms that ooze from place to place. They reach out with one part of their cell, a structure called a pseudopod. They don't really have a shape because they are constantly on the move, hunting down food and eating it by wrapping themselves around the food and absorbing it into their body for digestion. A vacuole then forms around the food and it is digested. So this amoeba is getting ready to eat this green thing, whatever it is. It's going to absorb it through its membrane, much like you see here too. It's absorbing this paramecium through its cell membrane, and then a food vacuole will form around the object, and it will be digested with enzymes and other chemicals. Protists with a tail. Next protists are called flagellates because they move with a special tail called a flagellum. They live in water and the water inside of dirt. The flagella whip around like a clumsy fishtail. When it whips, the protist scoots along through the water. They do not do well in dry areas. They need a liquid environment to move, and they grow in colonies. These colonies move through the water, reproducing and growing the size of their colony. So these are some different microscope images of some flagellum. This looks a lot like the euglena that we have seen, and you can see their clear tail here. So they whip these tails around, and it makes them swim in a very clumsy, seizure-ish kind of fashion. Protists with hair. Gross. While a flagellum is a long tail, cilia are short little hairs. The classic example of a ciliate protist is a paramecium. This is a picture of a paramecium. They are very complex protists compared to other protists with little hairs all over their body. The hairs flap around and push the organism through the water. So think of all these little hairs as kind of flapping back and forth in a very coordinated way and propelling the paramecium forward. They can even hunt down food, which is other bacteria, and attack them. Instead of surrounding their prey like an amoeba does, they take in food through their little oral groove or their mouth. They even have a way of getting rid of the food through a pore at the end of their body, which would be kind of the protist version of a butt. So the food goes in, they use these hairs to sweep the food into their mouth, and then it gets picked up by a vacuole where it gets partially digested and then carried down through the cytoplasm, where it then is able to evacuate the paramecium through the pore. These creatures are some of the more advanced organisms in the protist kingdom. They function more like a human than they do a cell. For instance, the digestive process I just explained. They're not all good. Some bacteria are bad, and some are downright mean. Many species of bacteria cause disease in humans, animals, and even plants, like E. coli and tetanus. don't know of any viruses that are good for the world. So basically, all viruses are bad. A good virus does not exist. They are an important piece of evolution, though, and natural selection. Weaker and older animals are more easily infected by viruses. So then those organisms are removed from the population so that healthier animals can survive. If people never died and people lived to be hundreds and hundreds of years old, then our world would be extremely overpopulated. So to kind of keep the natural balance of the world going, we need things like viruses and bacteria that will kind of kill off some of our weaker population members. Different viruses that you could come in contact with include pneumonia, meningitis, and rabies. Humans are actually creating stronger bacteria and viruses by accident. Obviously, we're not purposely trying to grow superhuman bacteria and viruses, but it's kind of happening. The idea of natural selection is that weaker organisms are killed off and stronger ones survive and duplicate or reproduce. If you take antibiotics that kill bacteria, you might feel better, but some of the bacteria may survive the medicine and doesn't die. Not enough of the bacteria survive to hurt you, but they are still there. So a few of those super strong bacteria that are immune to the medicine are left behind, and then over time they start to get bigger and they could cause you to become sick, and then there's a chance that they fought off those antibiotics once and they could do it again. That is the end of our lesson about protists and bacteria.